The space station floated like a metal flower against the dying red star. Its name was Harmony's Edge, and today it would see anything but harmony. Ships from 47 different worlds crowded around it. Some looked like metal whales. Others moved on wings that caught starlight. A few were just balls of crystal that hummed with strange energy. Commander Park Jin-ho stood at the viewing window of the human transport ship. He watched the alien vessels with calm eyes. His uniform was simple and clean. No fancy metals or bright colors like the other species wore. Just dark blue fabric with small silver bars on his collar. "They're all here," said Dr. Kim So-ra as she joined him at the window. She carried a data pad and wore the same simple uniform. Her job was to study alien life, but today she would study alien fear instead. "Every single one," Park replied. His voice was quiet. "Even the ones who usually skip these meetings." Behind them, Ambassador Lee Tae-min finished reading through the charges against humanity. The list was long, too long for species that had only known humans for 200 years. Aggressive expansion, rapid military growth, dangerous technology development, unpredictable behavior patterns. "Sir," Dr. Kim said to the ambassador, "the translation systems are ready. Every word spoken in there will be recorded and sent back to Earth." Lee nodded. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years trying to build friendship between humans and other species. Today, he would watch those efforts crumble. "Remember," Lee said to both of them, "we listen, we take notes, we do not argue, no matter what they say about us." The docking tube connected with a soft thud. Air pressure equalized with a hiss. The three humans walked through the tube and into the station. The walls were covered with symbols from dozens of languages. Pictures of past meetings showed aliens shaking hands, tentacles, and claws in friendship. The main chamber was huge. It could hold thousands of beings. Today, it was full. The humans took their assigned seats in a section marked with Earth's simple blue and green symbol. Around them, alien representatives filled rows upon rows of different-shaped chairs. Veltar of the Kelthani spoke first. His people looked like dolphins that had learned to walk. His skin was wet and gray, and his voice bubbled like water over rocks. "Friends of the Council," Veltar said, "we gather today with heavy hearts. The human species has grown strong, too fast." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Some species clicked their approval. Others flashed lights. A few drummed tentacles against their chairs. Dr. Kim made notes on her pad. She wrote down every gesture, every sound. This was data, even if it hurt to hear. "In 2 centuries," continued Veltar, "humans have matched technology that took us 20,000 years to develop. They build weapons we have never seen. They expand to new worlds every month. They change faster than we can understand." More agreement from the crowd. Park watched the military attachés from other species. They sat stiff and ready. Some had weapons openly displayed. The message was clear. Prime Speaker Scrix of the Vorthak stood up next. His people looked like giant insects, with armor instead of skin. When he spoke, his voice buzzed like angry bees. "The humans say they come in peace," Scrix announced. "But they arrive with warships. They say they want trade, but they take our best minds to work for them. They say they respect our ways, but they change everything they touch." Ambassador Lee kept his face blank. Beside him, Dr. Kim continued taking notes. Park watched the exits. Standard military thinking, always know how to leave. One by one, other species stood to speak. The crystal beings sang their fears in notes that made the air shimmer. The plant people rustled their leaves in patterns that meant distrust. Even species that had been friendly to humans added their voices to the growing chorus of worry. "They build too fast," said one. "They learn too much," said another. "They ask too many questions," added a third. The session went on for hours. Ambassador Lee sat through every accusation, every fear, every demand that humans slow down, step back, and accept limits on their growth. Dr. Kim filled pad after pad with data. The numbers were clear. 46 species now stood against humanity. Only one, a small group of traders from the Outer Rim, remained neutral. They were too far away to care about human expansion. When the speeches finally ended, the vote began. It was not close. 46 voices agreed on the restrictions. Humans must accept monitoring stations in all their star systems. Human military growth must stop. Human technology development must be supervised by council experts. Human expansion beyond current borders was forbidden. The alternative was simple. If humans refused these terms, the combined fleets of 46 worlds would enforce them. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and attention organ focused on the human section. Park felt the weight of their stares. Dr. Kim stopped writing and looked up from her pad. Ambassador Lee slowly stood. The old diplomat looked around the chamber. He saw fear in alien faces. Fear of human strength, fear of human speed, fear of human unpredictability. But he also saw something else. The aliens expected anger. They expected threats. They expected humans to act like every other species when cornered. Lee bowed. It was a simple human gesture that most aliens recognized as respect. "We have heard your concerns," he said. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's speakers. "We understand your fears. We will consider your proposal and give you our answer." That was all. No arguments, no counter-demands, no threats of war or promises of revenge. Just a simple statement and a respectful bow. Scrix's mandibles clicked with confusion. Veltar's gills fluttered with surprise. Across the chamber, alien representatives whispered to each other in dozens of languages. This was not the response they had expected. Ambassador Lee turned and walked toward the exit. Dr. Kim closed her datapad and followed. Commander Park took one last look around the chamber, memorizing faces and positions, then joined them. The three humans walked through the station corridors in silence. Other beings pressed against the walls to let them pass. Some showed curiosity. Others displayed fear. A few seemed almost disappointed that the humans were leaving so quietly. At the docking tube, Ambassador Lee paused. A young Kelthani approached him. She wore the robes of a student and carried translation equipment. "Sir," she said in careful, human language. "Will your people accept the council's terms?" Lee looked at her for a long moment. "We will give you our answer," he repeated. Then he smiled. It was a sad smile, but not an angry one. "Take care of yourself, young one. The galaxy is about to become a much larger place." The humans boarded their ship and undocked from the station. As they flew away, Park watched the alien fleets through the viewing port. So many ships, so many different designs, all united in their fear of one small species from a blue and green world. "What do we tell Earth?" Dr. Kim asked. Ambassador Lee stared out at the stars. "We tell them the truth. The galaxy has made its choice." Behind them, Harmony's edge grew smaller against the dying star. Soon, it would be just another point of light in the darkness. But the words spoken there would echo across the galaxy for years to come. The human ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving only empty space where it had been. In the station, alien representatives began planning for a future without human cooperation. None of them realized they were planning for their own destruction. Captain Yoon Da-hai stood on the bridge of Seoul's Pride, watching cargo containers float through space toward her ship. Each container held pieces of human lives, furniture from apartments, tools from workshops, memories from families who had called this world home for 3 generations. The world below was called New Jeju by humans. The Kelthani called it Water's Gift. For 15 years, both species had shared its surface. Human cities sat beside Kelthani pools. Human farms grew food that Kelthani merchants carried to other worlds. Children from both species played together in schools that taught 2 languages. Now the humans were leaving. "Captain," said her first officer, pointing to a small ship approaching from the planet. "The Kelthani trade representative wants to dock. Says it's urgent." Yoon nodded. She had been expecting this visit. Word of the council meeting had spread fast through the galaxy's communication networks. Every alien who worked with humans now knew about the ultimatum. The Kelthani ship looked like a teardrop made of silver. It docked with Seoul's Pride without any problems. The airlock hissed open, and Fintal swam through in his mobile water suit. He had been Yoon's business partner for 8 years. His company bought human-made electronics and sold them across Kelthani space. "Dahi," Fintal said, his voice bubbling through the water in his helmet. "Please tell me the rumors are false. You cannot all be leaving." Yoon gestured for him to follow her to the ship's meeting room. Through the windows, they could see more. Human cargo ships loading supplies and equipment. A steady stream of shuttles carried people up from the planet's surface. "I'm sorry, old friend," Yoon said as they sat down. "But the rumors are true. All human civilians are being relocated from mixed-species worlds." Fintal's gills fluttered with distress. "But why?" "The council decision was about military restrictions, not about trade, not about civilian cooperation. Our governments think it's better this way," Yoon replied. She kept her voice calm and professional. "Clean separation. Less chance for future problems." Future problems. Fintal's voice rose higher, making the water in his suit bubble faster. "We have contracts, 5-year agreements for agricultural equipment, orders for medical supplies that my people need." Yoon pulled out a data pad and showed him the screen. "All contracts are being canceled, with full compensation for any losses, of course. Your companies will receive payments for the entire contract value, even for goods not yet delivered." Fintal stared at the numbers. The compensation was generous, more than generous. It would give Kelthani companies enough money to find other suppliers, but it would take time. Maybe years. "This is not about money, Dahai. This is about partnership, about friendship, about the future we were building together." Yoon looked out the window at New Jeju. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans and green continents, just like Earth. She had lived there for 5 years. Her daughter had taken her first steps in the human settlement of Busan too. Her husband was buried in the cemetery outside the city, next to Kelthani graves marked with water symbols. "I know," she said quietly, "but sometimes partnerships end. Sometimes friends have to go separate ways." Over the next 3 days, Seoul's Pride and dozens of other human ships completed the evacuation of New Jeju. 20,000 humans left the planet. They took their belongings, their equipment, and their knowledge. They left behind empty buildings and confused alien neighbors. Dr. Choi Mi-young was packing her research equipment on a different world. The planet had no name that humans could pronounce. The Vorthak who lived there called it something that sounded like rocks grinding together. Humans just called it Dig Site 7. For 3 years, Dr. Choi had been studying the ruins left by the architects. Nobody knew who the architects were. They had disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind only mysterious buildings and strange technology. Every species in the galaxy wanted to understand what the architects had known. Dr. Choi was the best human expert on architect technology. Her team had made more progress in 3 years than other species had made in centuries. They had decoded architect writing systems. They had figured out how to activate some of the ancient machines. They were close to understanding the power, sources that still worked after millions of years. Her Vorthak colleague, researcher Zicht, watched as human workers loaded the equipment into transport containers. "This makes no sense," Zicht buzzed through his translator. "We are on the edge of a breakthrough. The power core patterns are almost decoded. 1 more month, maybe 2, and we could unlock energy technology beyond our dreams." Dr. Choi sealed the last container and marked it with shipping codes. "I'm sorry, Zicht. Orders are orders. All human personnel are being recalled from joint research projects." "But the data, the research, you cannot take it all with you." Dr. Choi handed him a data storage unit. "These are copies of our findings up to last month. Your team can continue the work. The theoretical framework is all there." Zicht's compound eyes focused on the storage unit. "Theoretical framework? But we need your quantum processing systems to run the calculations. We need your simulation software to test the theories. You'll have to develop your own systems," Dr. Choi said. She felt bad about leaving, but she also felt something else. Relief, maybe. The architects had been powerful, maybe too powerful. Some of their technology scared her. It was better if that knowledge was discovered slowly, carefully. Engineer. Nam Ho-seok had the hardest job of all. He was responsible for shutting down the quantum communication network that connected most of the galaxy. Humans had built the network 15 years ago as a gift to promote peace and understanding. It let species talk to each other instantly, across thousands of light years. The network had made galactic civilization possible. Before it existed, messages between distant worlds took months or years to deliver. Now, they took seconds. The network had enabled trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange on a scale never seen before. Nam stood in the main control center on Communication Hub Prime. Banks of quantum processors hummed around him. Streams of data flowed through fiber optic cables. The screens showed communication traffic from across the galaxy, millions of messages every second. His assistant, a young human named Park Soo-jin, looked nervous. "Sir, are we really shutting all of this down?" Nam nodded. "Standard galactic law. Creators retain rights to their technology. The Council wants humans to step back, so we step back completely. But, sir, the disruption will be massive. Trade, networks, diplomatic channels, emergency communications, all of it depends on our system." "I know," Nam said. He began entering shutdown codes into the main computer. "But we built it and we can take it down. The shutdown process took 6 hours. Nam and his team worked carefully, making sure no alien data was damaged. They copied everything to storage units and left them for the Council to collect. Then they began pulling out the human-designed hardware. The quantum processors were delicate. Machines. They required human-made components that no other species knew how to produce. Without them, the communication network could not function. As the last processor was removed, the galaxy fell silent. On Kelthani Prime, Counselor Veltar watched his communication console go dark. He had been in the middle of a conversation with Vorthak diplomats about trade agreements. The screen just went blank. On Vorthak Central, Prime Speaker Skrix tried to send orders to military fleets in distant systems. The message queue showed error after error. Connection failed. Network unavailable. Signal lost. Across the galaxy, billions of beings reached for communication devices that no longer worked. The quantum network was gone. In its place was only the old radio communication system. Messages that once traveled instantly now crawled through space at the speed of light. A message from Kelthani Prime to Vorthak Central now took 3 days to arrive. The human merchant captain who had carried medical supplies to the outer rim. Colonies sent a polite message to her alien customers. "Due to policy changes, we can no longer provide service to Council species. We wish you well in all your future endeavors." The human researchers who had been developing new farming techniques for desert worlds packed their equipment and left. They took with them the genetic modifications that had made barren planets bloom. The human doctors who had been fighting the plague in the spiral arm systems boarded their medical ships and departed. They left behind treatment protocols and equipment, but the most advanced medicines required human manufacturing techniques. In 3 months, every human civilian had left every mixed-species world. Every human researcher had abandoned every joint project. Every human merchant had canceled every long-term contract. They did it all quietly, politely, without anger or threats or demands. They just left. Ambassador Lee stood in his office on Earth, looking at reports from across human space. The evacuation was complete. 2 million humans had been relocated from alien worlds. Billions of credits and contracts had been canceled. Decades of scientific cooperation had ended. "Any protests from the Council?" he asked his aide. A few complaints about contract cancellations, some requests to reconsider the communication network. "Shut down, but nothing official. They seem to think this is all temporary." Lee nodded. The aliens thought humans were throwing a tantrum. They expected demands and negotiations. They expected humans to come back when they cooled down. Admiral Kang Ji-won watched the last human transport ship disappear into hyperspace. Behind it, the mining station New Seoul slowly came apart. Human workers had been dismantling it for 2 weeks, carefully removing every piece of human technology. The station had been a gift to the Vorthak 5 years ago. It used human fusion technology to process asteroids that no other species could crack. The rare metals it produced powered ships across 3 star systems. Now it was being returned to its original state, just empty rock floating in space. "Admiral," her communications officer said, "we're getting requests from the Vorthak Mining Authority. They want to know if we can leave some of the processing equipment." Kang shook her head. Standard withdrawal procedure. We take everything we built. We fix everything we changed. We leave things exactly as we found them. Through the view screen, she could see Vorthak ships waiting at a safe distance. They had been watching the dismantling process for days. Their messages grew more desperate each day, but Kang's orders were clear. Complete withdrawal. On the planet below, technician Oh Byung-ho supervised the removal of the atmospheric processors that had made the world livable for Vorthak colonies. The processors were huge machines that turned poisonous gases into breathable air. Without them, the Vorthak would have to abandon their cities. "Sir," one of O's workers said, "the local Vorthak administrator is here again. He wants to talk to you." O looked up from the processor he was disconnecting. Administrator Clixith stood nearby, his insect-like body trembling with stress. Behind him, several Vorthak workers watched with worried compound eyes. Technician. "Oh," Clixith buzzed. "Please, you must leave the processors. Without them, 50,000 Vorthak will have to evacuate this world. Our children were born here. This is their home." O felt sorry for Clixith, but his orders were clear. "I understand your situation, but this is human technology. The Council decided that human involvement in alien affairs was not wanted. But we need these machines. We cannot build replacements. The technology is too advanced for us." "Then you should not have depended on it," O said quietly. He continued disconnecting power cables from the processor. "You have the original Vorthak. Atmospheric systems. They worked for your species for thousands of years." Clixth's mandibles clicked with frustration. "Those old systems cannot support 50,000 people. They were designed for small outposts, not cities." O paused in his work. "Why did you build cities here if your technology could not support them?" The question hung in the air. Clixith had no answer. His people had built big cities because human technology made it possible. They had never asked what would happen if that technology went away. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on hundreds of worlds. Human technicians dismantled fusion reactors, medical facilities, and terraforming equipment. They worked, carefully and professionally. They explained their actions politely, but they did not change their minds. On Kelthani Prime, the agricultural crisis was getting worse. The ocean world had been feeding 12 billion people using human-developed sea crops. The modified plants could grow in deep water and produce 3 times more food than traditional Kelthani crops. But the modified plants needed human-made nutrients to survive. Without those nutrients, the crops were dying. Within 6 months, Kelthani Prime would face starvation. Trader Lim Hyejin processed the emergency requests from Kelthani agricultural authorities. Her company had supplied the nutrients for 8 years. Now she was canceling all future shipments. "Please," the Kelthani trade minister begged through the communication system, "we can pay double, triple. Name your price." Lim looked at her cargo holds full of nutrients, enough to feed Kelthani Prime for a year. "I'm sorry. We are no longer authorized to trade with Council species. Your own governments made that decision. But our people will starve. Then your people should have thought of that before voting for restrictions," Lim replied. She felt cruel saying it, but it was the truth. "You wanted independence from human technology. This is what independence looks like." The communication ended. Lim stared at her cargo holds for a long time. Then, she gave orders to her crew to find human colonies that might need the food. It would not go to waste, but it would not save the Kelthani either. Captain Seo Jun-ki patrolled the border between human and alien space in his patrol ship Jeju Star. For 6 months, he had been watching alien ships test the boundary. Most turned back when warned. A few pushed further, hoping to reach human colonies. Today, a different kind of ship approached the border. It was big and slow, clearly civilian. SEO's sensors showed it was packed with life signs, refugees, unidentified vessel. "This is Captain SEO of the Human Border Patrol. You are approaching restricted space. Please state your business." The reply came in broken human language. "Human Captain, this is Kelthani refugee ship Deep Current. We carry civilians from Mining World 7. Our world is dying. Air processors failed. We need sanctuary." SEO checked his star charts. Mining World 7 had been a joint colony. Humans had built the air processors that kept the underground cities livable. When the humans left, the old Kelthani systems had not been strong enough to take over. Deep Current, I understand your situation, but I cannot authorize entry into human space without proper documentation. Human captain, please. We have children aboard. Elders who cannot survive the journey to other Kelthani worlds. We only need temporary shelter. SEO looked at his sensor readings again. 3,000 Kelthani refugees. Men, women, and children floating in the dark between human and alien space. Too proud to officially ask for help. Too desperate to go home. Deep Current. You are welcome to remain at your current position while you contact Kelthani authorities for assistance. Human space remains closed to council species. The silence that followed stretched for minutes. Finally, the Kelthani captain spoke again. His voice was tired and defeated. Understood, human captain. We will wait here. SEO watched the refugee ship drift just outside the border. His orders were clear. Maintain the boundary that the council had demanded. No exceptions, no special cases. The aliens had wanted separation, and they would get it completely. But it hurt to watch. Professor Han Eun-ji studied the reports coming in from across human space. As a xenocultural specialist, she had spent her career understanding how different species interacted. Now she was documenting the end of those interactions. The numbers were staggering. In 6 months, galactic trade had dropped by 60%. Communication between species had slowed to levels not seen in 50 years. 3 species had already started internal conflicts over resources that human technology used to provide. Chatu. Spiral arm plague was spreading to its 4th star system. Human medical ships could have stopped it in days with the right treatments. Instead, alien medical teams struggled with treatments that took months to work. If they worked at all, the architect ruins remained unsolved. Without human quantum computers and analysis techniques, alien researchers had made no progress. The ancient secrets that might have advanced galactic civilization stayed locked in dead stone. We're watching the galaxy regress, Han wrote in her research notes. Technology levels falling, communication breaking down, cooperation ending, all because they were afraid of how fast we were advancing. Her assistant, Dr. Park Min-soo, looked over her shoulder at the data. They're still sending requests through back channels, asking if humans might reconsider some of the withdrawal. Han shook her head. The government position is clear. The council made their choice. We're respecting that choice completely. Even if it leads to suffering? Even then, Han said, we offered partnership. They chose fear instead. We cannot force them to accept help they do not want. On Earth, Ambassador Lee received the first formal communication from the Galactic Council in 6 months. It was not an apology or a request for negotiation. It was a demand to know why humans had abandoned their responsibilities to the galactic community. Lee read the message 3 times before responding. His reply was short and polite. The human species is respecting the Council's decision regarding our involvement in galactic affairs. We understood your concerns about human expansion and technology development. We have stepped back as requested. We wish all Council species success in their independent development. The reply came back within hours. Counselor Veltar himself had written it. This is not what we meant. We wanted restrictions, not complete withdrawal. The galaxy needs human technology. Lee showed the message to his staff. They read it in silence. What do we tell them, sir? His aide asked. Lee looked out his office window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere out there, alien species were struggling with problems that humans could solve easily. Somewhere out there, beings were dying from diseases that human medicine could cure. Somewhere out there, worlds were falling silent because they had no way to call for help. We tell them the truth, Lee said finally. They got exactly what they asked for. The human merchant ships that used to carry goods between alien worlds now served only human colonies. The human researchers who used to solve galactic problems now worked on purely human projects. The human diplomats who used to mediate alien disputes now focused on human affairs. The galaxy had wanted humans to step back, so humans stepped back completely. Dr. An Sang-woo stood in his laboratory on Europa Station, watching the news feeds from alien space. The plague that had started on one small Kelthani world was now spreading through 7 star systems. The death count was rising every day. Millions were sick. Hundreds of thousands had already died. He knew he could stop it. The cure was sitting in his computer files, developed 2 years ago during his time as director of the Galactic Medical Exchange Program. It was based on research done with alien partners, using samples from 12 different species. The treatment could be synthesized and distributed within weeks. But the Council's own laws now prevented them from asking for help from a restricted species. "Sir," his assistant Dr. Yang Sumin said, entering the lab with another datapad. "The Vorthak Medical Authority sent another indirect message, through their trade representatives this time. They're asking if we have any research on the plague strain." Dr. An did not look away from the news feeds. Images of Kelthani children in hospital pools. Vorthak workers too weak to leave their nests. What did our government tell them? The same thing as always. Human medical research is no longer available to Council species. They made that choice when they voted for restrictions. Dr. An finally turned away from the screens. "Have you run the numbers on what would happen if the plague spreads to the core worlds?" Dr. Yang consulted her datapad. "Computer models suggest 40% mortality rates among Kelthani populations, 60% among Vorthak. The smaller species, the numbers are worse. And time to develop a cure using their own technology. 2 to 3 years, assuming they can coordinate research across species barriers, which they probably cannot, given that their communication networks are still down." Dr. An walked to his equipment storage room. Shelves lined with medical supplies stretched from floor to ceiling. Enough medicine to save millions of lives, all of it useless if he could not deliver it to the beings who needed it. Captain Seo Jun-ki received new orders from Human Border Command. The refugee situation was getting worse. Dozens of alien ships now floated just outside human space. Some carried civilians fleeing plague worlds. Others held colonists whose life support systems had failed without human maintenance. The alien ships did not ask for permission to enter human space. That would require admitting they needed human help. Instead, they waited just beyond the border, hoping someone would make the first move. "Captain," his communications officer said, "the Kelthani refugee ship Deep Current is reporting critical life support failures. They're asking if we can provide emergency technical assistance." SEO looked at the tactical display. The refugee ship had been waiting for 3 weeks. Its engines were failing. Its air recycling systems were breaking down. 3,000 Kelthani. Civilians were slowly dying in the cold vacuum of space. "What are our orders regarding emergency assistance?" "Clear, sir. The border remains closed to Council species. No exceptions." SEO stared at the display for a long time. 3,000 lives, men, women, children, floating in a broken ship because their own leaders were too proud to officially ask for help. "Send them the technical specifications for basic life support repairs," he ordered. "Information only. They'll have to do the repairs themselves." "Sir, that's borderline violation of the exclusion protocols. It's information, not assistance. They can choose to use it or not." The technical data was transmitted within minutes. On the refugee ship, Kelthani engineers studied human repair procedures they barely understood. Some of the fixes worked, others did not. The ship's life support stabilized, but it would not last much longer. Professor Han Eun-ji published her Interim Report on the Galactic Situation. The title was simple: Cultural Regression in Post-Human Galactic Society. The contents were devastating. Trade networks that had taken 50 years to build were collapsing. Species that had worked together for decades were turning inward, focusing only on their own survival. Old territorial disputes that had been settled by human mediation were flaring up again. The Kelthani and Vorthak had started arguing over mineral rights in the neutral zone. Without human peacekeeping forces to monitor the area, both species were sending military ships to protect their claims. 3 smaller species in the Outer Rim had formed an alliance against their neighbors. They were afraid that stronger species would take advantage of the communication breakdown to expand into their territory. "The galaxy is fragmenting," Han wrote. "Without human technology to enable cooperation and human diplomacy to resolve conflicts, the galactic community is falling apart. We are seeing a return to the isolation and mistrust that existed before first contact. Her research team had also been studying changes in human society. Cut off from the wider galaxy, humans were developing in new directions. Art forms that no alien eyes would see. Technologies that no alien minds would understand. Cultural practices that reflected humanity's new isolation. We are becoming something different, Han noted. Something the galaxy chose not to know. The Galactic Council reconvened for the first time in a year. Only 32 of the original 47 species attended. Some were dealing with internal crises. Others could no longer afford to send representatives to the meeting station. Councillor Veltar looked around the half-empty chamber. The Kelthani delegation was smaller than usual. 3 of his people had died from the plague while traveling to the meeting. The medical facilities on the station were inadequate without human equipment. My fellow councillors, Veltar began, we face a crisis. The human withdrawal has caused more disruption than we anticipated. Prime Speaker Scrix buzzed angrily from his section. The humans abandoned us. They showed their true nature by walking away when we needed them most. We told them to walk away, Veltar replied. We voted for restrictions and separation. They gave us exactly what we asked for. We asked for reasonable limits on their expansion, not complete abandonment. A new voice spoke up. Councillor Drifteth of the Methane Breathers had never been friendly to humans. The humans are punishing us. This withdrawal is a form of warfare. They are hurting us on purpose. Veltar's gills fluttered with frustration. They are following our own laws. We said their technology was dangerous, so they took it away. We said their presence was unwelcome, so they left. We said we wanted independence, so they gave it to us. The debate went on for hours. Some councillors wanted to send messages to human space, asking for emergency assistance. Others insisted that would show weakness. A few suggested military action to force humans to resume cooperation. In the end, they voted to send a single formal message to Earth. It was carefully worded to avoid seeming like a request for help. The Galactic Council wishes to clarify that our previous resolutions regarding human activities were meant to establish boundaries, not to end all cooperation. We remain open to discussions about mutually beneficial arrangements. The human reply came 3 days later. It was signed by Ambassador Lee personally. The human species appreciates the Council's clarification. However, we believe the original resolution was quite clear in its intent. We continue to respect the Council's decision and wish all member species success in their independent development. The Thai message was polite, professional, final. Meanwhile, human society continued to evolve in isolation. Dr. Yang Min-ho led a research project into technologies that had been too dangerous to develop while working with alien partners. Weapon systems that could counter unknown threats, shield technologies that could protect entire star systems, manufacturing techniques that could build fleets in months instead of years. They were afraid of our rapid development, Dr. Yang told his team. They thought we were advancing too fast, becoming too powerful. They should see us now. In the 2 years since the withdrawal, human technology had leaped forward by decades. Without the need to consider alien concerns or share research with species that could not keep up, human scientists had been free to pursue projects that would have terrified the Council. The humans were becoming something new, something powerful, something that the galaxy had chosen not to understand. On the border, Captain Seo watched another refugee ship arrive. This one was different. Instead of civilian refugees, it carried a diplomatic delegation from the Kelthani government. They had come to negotiate, but they would not cross into human space. That would be too much like surrender. Captain Seo, the Kelthani diplomat transmitted, we wish to discuss the possibility of limited cooperation, medical assistance for the plague, technical support for critical systems, nothing more. SEO had been expecting this. The alien governments were finally desperate enough to try negotiating, but they still would not admit they needed human help. I will forward your message to appropriate authorities, Seo replied. But I should remind you that human policy regarding council species has not changed. The diplomatic ship waited at the border for 6 days. Finally, the reply came from Earth. The human government thanks the Kelthani delegation for their interest in cooperation. However, we believe it would be inappropriate to resume relations without a formal revision of the original Council resolution. We respect the Council's sovereignty and will not interfere with their internal decisions. The message was clear. If the aliens wanted human help, they would have to publicly admit they had been wrong. Fleet Admiral Kim Woo-jin stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station, watching the emergency transmission from the Outer Rim. The message had been repeating for 6 hours. Just 3 words in a dozen languages. Help us, please. The transmission came from what used to be Kelthani Colony World 5. The colony had been home to 8 million beings from 12 different species. Now the planet was dark. No lights, no communication signals, no life signs. They had been the first to encounter the Devourers. Admiral, his communications officer said, we're getting reports from across the Outer Rim. 17 colonies have gone dark in the last week. No survivors found. Kim studied the tactical display. The attack pattern was unlike anything in the military databases. The Devourers moved from system to system with impossible speed. Their weapons tore through alien shields like they were made of paper. Their technology seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. What do we know about these Devourers? Kim asked his intelligence officer. Very little, sir. They appeared from outside the galaxy 6 months ago. No diplomatic contact, no demands. They just destroy everything they find. The alien fleets that have engaged them report complete defeats within hours. Kim nodded. The galaxy that had been so afraid of human military power was now facing a real threat. And they were helpless against it. Any word from the Galactic Council? They're requesting assistance, sir. Kim turned to look at his officer. In 5 years, no council species had made an official request for human help. They had sent hints, suggestions, indirect messages through third parties, but never a direct request. Show me the message. The transmission appeared on the main screen. It was signed by every surviving member of the Galactic Council, even Prime Speaker Scrix, who had led the campaign against humanity 5 years ago. 2. The human government and people, the message began. We acknowledge our previous errors in judgment. We recognize that our fears led us to make decisions that harmed both our species and yours. We formally request immediate military assistance against the threat known as the Devourers. We offer full recognition of human sovereignty, permanent council membership with veto power, and unrestricted access to all council technology and resources. The message went on for several pages. Apologies, promises, desperate pleas for help. It was everything the humans could have wanted 5 years ago. But something had changed in those 5 years. Kim's aide, Commander Park Soo-min, read through the full message. She was the daughter of the old Commander Park Jin-ho, who had witnessed the original council session. Like her father, she had learned to watch and think before acting. Sir, what are our orders regarding this request? Kim looked at the intelligence. Reports again. The Devourers were not like anything the galaxy had seen before. Their technology was centuries ahead of council species, maybe even ahead of human technology. But that was exactly why humans had spent the last 5 years preparing. Contact. All sector commanders, Kim ordered. Operation Guardian is authorized. Commander Park raised an eyebrow. Sir, Operation Guardian was designed as a defensive protocol. We're talking about offensive action in alien space. The defense of humanity includes the defense of potential threats to humanity, Kim replied. If the Devourers finish with the Ace Council species, they'll come for us next. We stop them now while they're still far from our borders. Across human space, military commanders opened sealed orders they had been carrying for 3 years. Operation Guardian was the plan humans had developed in secret during their isolation. It was designed for exactly this scenario. A threat, too, powerful for the galaxy to handle alone, but the humans would not act as subordinates to the Council. They would not take orders from species that had rejected them. They would act independently as protectors of the galaxy, whether the galaxy wanted protection or not. Captain Yoon Da-hai, now commanding the battleship New Seoul, received her orders while patrolling the inner systems. She was to proceed to the Outer Rim with the Third Fleet and engage Devourer forces. No coordination with alien militaries, no shared command structure, just human ships, fighting on their own terms. Dr. Yang Min-ho's research team finally had a target for their secret weapons development. The analysis of Devourer technology showed energy patterns unlike anything in known physics. But the humans had been developing counters for unknown threats for 5 years. Deploy the resonance torpedoes, Dr. Yang ordered his technical teams, and prep the quantum disruption fields. We're about to find out if our theories work in practice. The first human ships arrived at the crisis zone within hours of receiving orders. They did not announce their presence to alien forces. They did not coordinate with Council fleets. They simply appeared and began attacking Devourer vessels. The battle was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships moved with precision and speed that alien observers could barely track. Their weapons cut through Devourer shields that had resisted everything the Council could throw at them. Their defensive systems absorbed attacks that had destroyed alien dreadnoughts. Ambassador Park Soo-min, Lee Tae-min's successor, was aboard the flagship when the first reports came in. She had been sent not to command military forces, but to observe and document. The galaxy needed to understand what humanity had become during 5 years of isolation. "Ma'am," the ship's captain reported, "we've engaged a Devourer fleet of 12 vessels. Enemy ships are significantly larger than ours, but our weapons are proving effective." Through the view screen, Park watched human fighters dance around massive Devourer ships. The alien vessels were 3 times larger than human battleships, but they moved like wounded animals, slow, predictable, vulnerable to tactics they had never encountered. "How are we doing this?" Park asked the tactical officer. "The reports said these ships destroyed entire alien fleets. The Devourers are advanced, ma'am, but they're not innovative. Their technology is old, even if it's powerful. They've been using the same tactics for probably millions of years. Our technology is newer, more flexible." Park nodded. Humanity's rapid development, the trait that had so frightened the Council, was exactly what made them effective against an ancient threat. The news of human involvement spread quickly through what remained of the galactic communication networks. Alien commanders who had been retreating in panic suddenly found Devourer fleets under attack by unknown ships. Systems that had been written off as lost were being defended by vessels that appeared without warning. Dr. An Sang-woo finally had a chance to use his medical research. Human hospital ships appeared at plague worlds, not to ask permission, but to begin treatment immediately. The cure he had developed years ago was finally deployed, ending the plague that had killed millions. "Are we coordinating with local medical authorities?" his staff asked. "No," Dr. An replied. "We're bypassing them entirely. The situation is too critical for diplomatic protocols." Captain Seo Jun-ki watched the refugee ships at the border with new eyes. They were no longer potential threats to be kept out of human space. They were civilians fleeing a war zone, and humans protected civilians, regardless of species. "All refugee vessels, this is Captain SEO of the Human Border Patrol. You are authorized to enter human space for emergency shelter. Proceed to Sanctuary Station for processing and temporary housing." The Kelthani captain of Deep Current could barely speak. "Captain Seo, we did not ask for sanctuary." "You don't need to ask," Seo replied. "You need help. We're providing it." The war against the Devourers lasted 3 months. Human fleets appeared wherever they were needed, fighting battles that alien forces could not win. They used weapons and tactics that had been developed in secret during the years of isolation. They operated with a coordination and efficiency that amazed alien observers. But the most surprising thing was what happened after the battles. Human ships did not occupy conquered worlds. They did not demand territory or resources as payment. They did not establish military governors or claim authority over alien populations. They simply destroyed the Devourer threat and moved on to the next crisis. When Kelthani officials tried to thank Admiral Kang for liberating their homeworld, she politely declined their ceremony. "We did not do this for gratitude," she explained. "We did it because it needed to be done." When Vorthak leaders offered to share their mining technology as payment for protection, human commanders refused. "We do not require payment for defending innocents," they said. The galaxy slowly began to understand what humanity had become during its years of silence. The final Devourer stronghold fell to a combined human fleet at the edge of the galaxy. The ancient ships that had terrorized dozens of species were reduced to debris in a battle that lasted 6 hours. The threat that had seemed unstoppable was simply stopped. Ambassador Park Soo-min stood before the reformed Galactic Council 3 months after the last battle. The chamber was different now, smaller. Many species had been devastated by the war. Others had simply given up on galactic cooperation. The Devourer threat has been eliminated, she announced. Human forces have returned to our space. We consider this matter closed. Councillor Veltar, now the senior member of a much-reduced council, spoke for the survivors. Ambassador Park, we owe humanity a debt that can never be repaid.